Thanks for joining us tonight. For those of you who haven't joined me for a webinar before, and there's a few of you tonight, the way it works is you should be able to see my screen, which says, please sir, I want some more. And if you want to talk or ask questions or make comments, I really encourage it. And the best way to do it, in fact the only way to do it during a large webinar like this, is to type a message into the chat box or the question box which you'll have in front of you. In fact, as we're just starting, could someone just write a note saying they can hear okay? There's people from all over the country today, so I just want to make sure everyone can hear. Generally, the audio quality is good, but if you can't, just give me a buzz. So just pop a little note in there. Thanks, Anne, that's great. All right, now in terms of timekeeping, it's 7 o'clock or just after, and we're going to finish at 7:30. However, if there are questions that go beyond that, I'd be very happy to keep going. But it'd be really good to, thanks also Scott, it's also good to keep it on time. So we've got a little bit to get through today, and most of you would have heard of or seen the emails I was sending out this week or last sort of 10 days about communicating with your clients, so thanks for responding to that. All right, so let's get started. What I'm going to do is just push this to one side so you can still see that, and then we'll put up make the screen larger. And I'll make sure also that we're actually recording this, which is great. All right, so let's get started. So please sir, I want some more. How to get your clients to put their hand up. And the whole focus of this session is talking about how you actually get your clients to respond to your recommendations. And the background to it is that we make strong recommendations as veterinarians in the consult room. It's probably reasonable to say you're going to be covering about 7 areas. You can break those areas down any way you want, but there's one way to do is to break it down to 7 areas of healthcare that you're going to be covering. You may not actually cover all those areas, but you'll cover a few of them. And one of the issues is that we find clients walking out the door without actually acting on that, and it can take some time, or if ever, for them to actually act on it. So a good example would be dental care, where you make a recommendation about dentistry and it might take them 18 months to respond. And there's lots of other cases like that. So what can we do to actually get them to put their hands up more frequently, or certainly more quickly? All right, so a bit about myself. I've met most people here tonight, but just a brief background. That's me there in the middle. No, that's me on the right. And this is me with attendees at the Brisbane PetPack Roadshow. We ran a national roadshow this year, which was very successful, talking about online marketing. And tonight, this is part of the topic we're talking about. So my background is I'm a vet, and I started PetPack about 10 years ago to increase the communication, or help practices increase their communication with clients. And we've been doing it in this space ever since. So we are experts in how you communicate with clients outside the practice, and particularly using online marketing tools like websites, Facebook and email. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. So let's have a little look at what we're going to cover tonight. We're going to have an analysis of your current situation, and there's lots of people here tonight with lots of different situations, but we'll talk about it in generalities, and I'd appreciate it if you can make some comments about your own situation. What are you trying to achieve? And then how are your clients looking after their animals currently? What levels of compliance are you seeing? And then how to help them do it better, how to help those people look after their animals better, which is the main reason why we're in the job. Okay, so let's a little bit of a start here, a little bit of a survey. You can jot a note into the little question section. I'd like to know, how often do clients hear from you? Now, I'll just clarify that question. If I'm a client of your practice, how often do I get a message from you? Is it once a year? Is it every 6 months, or is it every month, or is it more frequently? And just have a stab at that. You can pop an answer into the little text box you can write there. And then the next bit is, do you find people take a long time to decide on their issues or some issues? So I talked about dentistry before, and Okay, so looking at getting some of those responses coming in, Anne said, once a week on Facebook, she's in contact with her clients, which is great. And then, just do you find that people take a long time to decide on some issues? And when you think about those issues like dentistry, it's understandable that it can take a long time for someone to decide. Often it's new to them, so you've presented this problem to them as a new issue. You've told them it's painful, it's complicated, and it's going to be expensive. It might be $400, might be $1,000 to fix a dental problem. So often people can't make a decision or don't want to make a decision or don't feel like they can make a decision on the spot, and then they leave the practice. They walk out the door and they think they have to speak to their partner or their spouse, and they have to think about it. And I think it really helps to think through yourself if you've had to make a decision about making a purchase where you haven't wanted to make the decision on the spot. Like being at the dentist yourself is often one of those where it's an expensive thing that might be a little bit, you think it might be a bit optional, but you're not sure whether you're going to do it. And the point is that it can take some time for you to make that decision. And if it does take time, what we want to do is look at ways that we can make that pick up when that person's ready to make that decision and get them to make a decision with us. And then the next question is, do you have poor compliance on dental and obesity? I've written dental and obesity there as two key ones, but there's lots of issues. Anyone reporting any particular poor compliance areas? It's worth noting that in the surveys that we've done with clients or veterinary practices, the average pet owner, or the pet owners that actually you think are good clients, are sometimes doing about 25% of what you're recommending. So it's a pretty low number. And what we want to look at ways to actually improve that. So this little diagram here is actually from our roadshow, and I think you can all see it clearly. I've used it before on a webinar, and it basically shows how people come to a practice. So if at the top here you've got people driving by, coming to the website, or word of mouth. And word of mouth and drive-by are your two main sources of new clients. But increasingly they all come to your website, and then if your website's operating effectively, they'll ring you. Now, we're not going to talk much about what happens above the green line tonight because that's really the domain of websites and a bit of Facebook. But what we're going to talk about is what happens below the green line once they've made that phone call and made that appointment. And like it's for most people, they come in and make one appointment. If they've got a puppy or a kitten, they might make a couple of appointments. But what we really want to look at is how you can get those people to keep coming back on a regular basis, annually or even more frequently, and then become your top 10 clients. And you can see down the bottom here, you've got, these top clients. This is what attendees at the roadshow said, are bonded, valued, they're with you for 10 years, they're advocates. And how do you get that to happen? Well, one of the key ways you do it is you increase the communication level with them. You can see over here we've got a little squiggly line, which is a regular communication pathway with email or text, and as Anne said, she's using Facebook to communicate with her clients. So you need to think about ways to actually keep that contact going, keep in touch with your clients, so that will actually influence how long they stay with you for. It's obviously not the only decider, it's one of the important ones. So here's a little bit of research for people, pet owner perceptions and behaviour. This is research carried out by PetPack in early 2014. In summary, we found that pet owners have been disconnected from vets. So what that means is that it's either difficult to get to the vet, or it's more convenient to either do nothing or go to somewhere else like a Petstock or one of those feed stores that are increasingly selling veterinary products. And what then happens is people are starting to develop habits with these other sources. So that's something we want to look at and try and work out how we can actually make it easier for people to come back to the clinic, because the clinic is the number one source of healthcare in the community, not the feed store. This research is backed up by some much bigger studies in the US, so the AHA 2003 compliance study and the NCVI Bayer study, which you can have a look at. They're both available. Well, the NCVI one is available online. The compliance study actually came out as a book, which you probably all have. You can get it from Hills. So if we summarise the problems that we found during that research, the first one was that pet owners want to know what to do and when, which means that's when they're not in the clinic. When they're at home, they want to know what to do and when, which means we've got a massive opportunity here to send them relevant information that's useful for them, that's going to help them look after their animals better. And the second thing is pet owners want access to good quality advice that they can trust. Well, where does the best advice come from in the community? It's the clinic. And that's the advice they'll trust. If you ask these pet owners who they trust most, it's the vet clinic. The issue is that the clinic is not often communicating regularly enough to enough of its clients to make a difference. So it's a problem. These are what we call problems, but the positive side to that is they're really big opportunities for us. Okay, so here's a little, I'm going to run a little poll here, which you will see on your screen. If I just put it up. Just 1 minute. No, I can't run the poll because I can't see it. I will just ask you. You can see it on the screen here. What are you trying to achieve? Is your number one priority as a practice or a practitioner to help existing clients look after their animals better? Or is it you want those clients to spend more at the practice? And they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but I'm interested to know what is your main focus. So you can write that into the question section. Okay, so people are saying both. All right. And would it be fair to say then, if it's both, that they are actually, it's a win-win or they're synchronous? So by helping people look after their animals better, they're actually coming to you for advice. They're going to pay you for that. And then as a result, they'll spend more at the practice. I think that's the case. And I'm interested to know what you think as well. Okay. So what it all means, and let's just have a quick look at one of these comments again. Yeah, so people are saying, yes, that's right. So basically, if we go back to that, helping existing clients look after their animals better and then them spending more at the practice are directly related. I actually like to call it a virtuous cycle where if you're doing your job well and the pet owner understands what it is you're recommending and is given the opportunity to respond to it and says, yes, I want to do it, because most pet owners want to look after their animals properly. You just need to find the right way to get them to that point. You know, for instance, you've got to get them to the right point to know how and why they're going to spend $800 on a dental. I mean, it's not easy to do that. Being a pet owner myself with a cat whose teeth need to be cleaned. But if they are going to come back to you and take your advice and act on it, they're going to spend more money at the practice. And there's a really big opportunity out there for practices to generate more income from their existing clients. Okay, so what it all means, our understanding of the research and our experience in the market is that you want to give your clients access to better quality information in a way they can digest and act on. And really the summary of that is if you keep in touch with them, when they're ready, they'll call you. Now, this when they're ready thing is really important. It's a concept that is used by very effective marketing firms, for instance, who this is what they specialize in around the world. So rather than forcing the client to do something on the spot in the consult room, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, well, depending on what sort of client they are, it's going to take a certain amount of time for them to be ready to do this. But if we keep in touch with them and give them good quality information, when they're ready, what they're going to do is they're going to turn around and ring the clinic, as opposed to turning around and doing nothing or forgetting about it or moving on or going somewhere else. So if you're regularly in touch with them and keeping in the top of their mind, they're much more likely to give you a call when they're ready, which means you'll get them to do the job a lot quicker than they would have otherwise. Which, the otherwise is waiting for them to come around for their annual health check, which might end up being 18 months later, and then you talk to them about it again and they've forgotten. Okay, so let's just jump into how you do it. And the most effective communication tool available is an email newsletter, but there's a lot of reasons why clinics don't send them. Now, when we started this business 10 years ago, most people were not doing email. They were sending hard copy newsletters, but the same reasons apply as to why clinics don't send them. And clinics would say, yeah, we think it's a really good idea, but the reason why we don't do it is, and here's a few of them. One, we started doing it, but then it got too hard. So, for instance, they had a team meeting. They said, we're going to do a newsletter because it's important. They allocated the job to a junior member of staff who got busy and got lost, the message got lost, and then the communication stopped happening. The newsletter stopped happening. The other one was, I was sitting up on Sunday nights checking the articles of the younger vets. That's a real quote. You know, sitting up on Sunday nights when your family watches TV while you're checking the articles written by the younger vets has got hair on it. So, you know, that's once again too hard. Not sure how to. Clinics are experts in animal health care, not necessarily in how you communicate with your clients. So knowing how to get started and how to do it properly is often a block. Takes too much time. You know, I'm employing staff to look after my clients. Why would I get them to write a newsletter? In fact, they can actually earn a lot more money by looking after clients than they can from writing a newsletter. And lastly, not a priority for any staff member. So it's not a priority in the clinic, and as a result, it doesn't get done. So there's probably other reasons, but they're sort of the main reasons we've picked up over the years. So what do we do about it? The whole reason why PetPack exists was because I had a problem in my clinic about communicating with clients and decided to develop an email and newsletter service. That was a long time ago in very early formation, but the principles are the same. So what we do is we provide an email and newsletter service that presents the clinic as the leader to the clients, the pet owners or the farmers, and it's easy to use, really easy to use. And the reason why we use email is because email is the most effective helping, or in brackets, selling tool available. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples. Now, if I'm just going to change screens for a moment here, and you'll see, if I go in here, just bear with me for a moment while I bring up the... So the first thing I'm going to show you is a graph from a article in Wired magazine, which is one of the leading online magazines. And while it's loading, this is something I sent out during the week, and you can see that the main message for this, and this is important for clinics who are not doing email but are focusing on social media. Now, the message here, the headline is email is crushing Twitter, Facebook for selling stuff online. Now, it doesn't mean that Twitter and Facebook, well, in clinics' cases, it's Facebook generally. Twitter's not used, but Facebook is used. Facebook is very important for clinics. It's a great way to build your brand and build word of mouth in the community. However, it's not good for selling. Now, this article, let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at the graph here. This is a graph of how business is done online, and it's transferable to the offline space, which is practice. Offline meaning people have to come into the clinic to buy. But let's have a look. The top line here, graph here, is cost per click or AdWords. Now, AdWords is a very effective way of getting people to buy if it's set up correctly online. The second most powerful channel, which is growing, is email. And it's important to make this point because email is less exciting for people because we've become really ensconced in social media, and we've forgotten about email to some extent. But email is the most effective way to actually sell stuff online or using online tools. And selling stuff means, in a vet practice way, is making strong recommendations that the pet owner goes, oh yeah, that makes sense, I'll do that, and then they ring you. And then down the bottom here you can see Facebook is right down here as a selling tool. And so we find the most effective way to use Facebook is to engage with your audience and then always push them back to your website, because that's where they're going to ring you from, and that's the message about how you should operate your Facebook to be effective. So let's have a look now at some examples of the email and newsletter service that we run. Here's a great example. This is in New South Wales, and you can see the presentation of the email newsletter is very important. So it's highly professional, but at the same time local and personalised. So the way we do that is we have really strong professional templates, but then we also encourage the practices to put their own images in. And you'll see as I show you a few more examples how the images vary, and there's no rule about how those images work. The guidelines are put images in here that relate to your practice, your staff, and your community. And as you scroll down, you can see they've introduced their own article here. So we encourage clinics to put their own articles in. And because to be most effective, they only need to put one small article in a month, they're actually able to achieve that. And you can see they've got the other, and then as you scroll down, there are more articles, and these articles are provided by us. And the practice can edit them, take them out, or leave them as they are. And our chief veterinary writer, Fee Turner, is one of the leaders in how you write material for the general public. So we find the articles are very well accepted. It's going to flick through a couple more examples. You can see here that these clinics have all branded their email newsletter with their own images. Here's a great example, large animal practice, South Australia. Banner image is a real image of their area. Anyone who gets this newsletter knows it's from their local vet that they know. It's very highly effective. And once again, the content is relevant to large animal producers. And so we adjust the content depending on what type of practice you're running. I was going to flick through a few more examples here. Staff profiles are really, really powerful. And then if we go down to some more large animal images here. And once again, a very successful small animal practice in Canberra. Staff front and centre, it's exactly what the clients want to see. The great thing about this newsletter is that when the clients receive it, and if you can imagine getting this on your phone, most people, about 50% of people look at it on their phones now, they can click straight onto the phone number here and ring the clinic. So if this email has arrived at a time where the client is ready to do that dental procedure and that's been niggling away at them, and that comes in their inbox and they go, yep, I've got to do it, they can ring you straight away. Or email you, but ringing is what we find most people do, and we encourage it. By the way, email is growing. And just a little introduction to how straightforward the I'm going to show you here if we can do a I'll just come back to that in a minute. All right, so there you go, and you can see there's another large animal one there. So in terms of how you would actually use this newsletter, what happens is you get a complete newsletter. If we go back to these guys here, they get a complete newsletter a month in advance. This is their local content they put in there, so that's not in there. What they do is they scroll down and read the articles, and then using our editing tool, which is a bit like an online banking system where you can just change details, you can go in and edit and remove and reorder your articles. And you can see, well, I'll show you an example of how they've done that. So this is their article they've added in here. So it's fully customizable and very easy to add this information. All right, so going back to our presentation, any questions about that before I go back to the presentation? No, all good. All right. So let's have a look at what the results are that we get from this. So we have a process called VetLab where we test and measure the performance of our online marketing. And we do that for our websites. We have 4 clinics around the country where they partner us to test and improve their online marketing. And because of our testing, we know 3 things about the email newsletter. The pet owners that receive it are engaged 3 to 4 times the national average, and we measure that by looking at the open rates, which is the open rates are a measure of whether someone looks at the newsletter or not. The feedback that the clinics get, so the clients will come into the clinic asking questions, and then the spend. And the spend analysis is actually done with the practices, our test practices, where we actually analyse the improvements in spend, and it's $60 per pet owner per annum extra spend at the practice when they're receiving the email newsletter compared to when they're not. So the summary here is that better communications improve animal health care and well-being, which is something that we're in business for, and I know that's what you're in business for as well. So the sort of results you get is that the clinics that use our system collect 50 emails per week for an average of 1,000 emails. So to put that in perspective, if you were about to start the email newsletter service, about half of you would have no emails, and we set up a process for you to help collect those emails, and you'll get 50 emails a week minimum. And so those numbers add up really quickly. About the other half of practices who start with us already have emails. They might have 300, they might have 1,000. So it depends which boat you're in, but the email collection process is really good, and you'll end up with an average of 1,000 emails. So 1,000 emails communicating to your clients is highly effective. Each client spends an average of $60 per year extra, which is about a 20% increase on their current spend, which is significant. So if you had 500 emails, then the newsletter service will generate $30,000 each year extra revenue, and most of that's margin. So it's a really good service, and that 30,000 is a measure of how it's improving the healthcare of those animals because they're spending the money with you to do more that you've recommended. Now, in terms of what it costs, we've actually, because Christmas coming in, we've got a end of year special, and we're actually taking 50 to 75% off the setup fee. So traditionally and normally the email newsletter is $1,200 setup and $350 a month. But now you can actually save between $300 to $600. The first option you've got is a $600 setup fee and $375 a month, and you commit to using it for 12 months. Now, if you have any problems in that 12 months and you're not happy for a reason, we're not going to force you to run it for 12 months, but we want you to take it on board for a 12-month commitment. By the way, our average client has been with us for 5 years, so we're very comfortable that we'll run a good service that you will find that works really well for you. So the setup fee, as it says here, the setup fee is paid for in the first month, and then you need 85 emails to break even. Now, even if you don't have any emails today, which is, some of you won't have any emails, you'll get those emails in about a month and a half. In fact, 20% of our clinics get 200 emails in the first month. So if you want to get those emails and make it break even, you'll make it break even in the first month. So it's a really cost-effective service. And as I said before, the average clinic grows to 1,000 emails. Now, if you analyse our entire client base now, our vets that use our service, the average is about 1,000 emails. And then option C is $300 setup and $400 a month, and then with that service you commit to 24 months. Any questions about that? All right. So just before I get into it, I'll just check the questions. No questions. That's great. So basically, to sort of summarise, clinics that use our email newsletter service do it because it keeps in touch with their clients. It then causes the clients to look after their animals better, and then they spend more at the practice. So it works. More money for the practice means better equipment often and better staffing levels, which then leads to a more harmonious workplace and better outcomes for animals. So it's a positive feedback loop to actually communicate with your clients more effectively and more often. So my question to you guys is, if you're interested, would you prefer option 2 or 3? And if you would like to get started, you can email me directly from the webinar. So the webinar emails you've been getting, you can reply to that. Or the emails I've been sending over the week about email communications, you can reply to that. Or you can go directly to our website, pitpack.com.au. I thank you very much for joining us. I hope that was useful and insightful. And if you have any questions about your how you're doing in communications currently, I'm happy to discuss those with you. And if you'd like to use the email newsletter service, we'd be absolutely delighted to give it to you. Thank you very much, and have a lovely evening. It's actually raining here in Melbourne. I hope it's nice wherever you are. All right, guys, thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.